So what I'd like to talk about, and this is not a scientific concept, you're not going to see this in any DSM, it's ADHD's double, triple whammy. Do not try this at home. That's kind of what the double, triple whammy feels like it when you're stuck in it, like you stuck your tongue in the mixing implement. So let's break it down. What's the first part of the double, triple whammy? It starts with the late to diagnosis adult with ADHD. So what we mean by late to diagnosis is the adult who doesn't know he or she has ADHD in maybe 30s, maybe 20s, 30s, 40s. I've known people in their 80s who've had their first diagnosis. And here's what's common, their triple whammy. It's a 3-layer kind of effect. You start with the ADHD neurobiology, and then you add on top of that unrecognized ADHD symptoms. And those get misinterpreted and often elicit negative feedback from childhood on, and we'll look at some examples. So you get a lot of negative feedback, and what's going to come from that? Negative mindsets, often. And you'll develop negative mindsets about yourself and often about other people, because people can often seem very unfair. Poor coping strategies then spring from the negative mindsets. And what are some of these neurobiological traits? Well, I asked the partners of adults with ADHD because sometimes they're more objective observers. And besides, that was the population I had to work with through the online support group. So 166 partners of adults with ADHD took this survey. And I have, there's a lot more questions in the survey, like 76, and I detail them at the website, adhdpartner.org. I'm writing a blog about the information from the survey. And so I took the symptoms from the DSM, from the diagnostic criteria, and I said rate them as far as how prevalent they are in your partner. And what do we see at the top? Easily distracted, difficulty organizing tasks and activities, difficulty sustaining tasks or attention in tasks, forgetful in daily duties, loses things necessary for tasks and activities. But look at the bottom. Feels on the go or driven by motor, talks excessively, leaves seat in situations where seating is expected. Those just aren't as common, but unfortunately, those are the things that a lot of people think is ADD. And that's what I thought with my husband. I thought, well, he can't have... I never thought of ADHD because ADHD was the little kid across the street who really had trouble keeping his mouth closed, and he was always running around and sometimes run out in the street, worry his mother to death. And I thought, well, that's ADHD. I just didn't know much about it. And I think that's true for a lot of us. We don't understand the subtleties that Dr. Barkley so elegantly outlined.